All right, real quick, one of the things I noticed as I was saving, I thought to myself, I never really did test the add feature of that last version of the program. And John was right, this probably looks better up here. What I discovered is when I was typing in this list view, or I'm sorry, in this edit autocomplete text view, as I was typing in here, because it was linked to the same adapter as the list, whenever it filtered this, it filtered this. When I typed an R up here, this list down here would change and only Reen would show up. And then when I added, Volker wasn't there, and so it went all stupid and it didn't add and do any of that stuff. So what I did quickly during the break is added a new ACT name adapter. So I added a third adapter, linked it using the simple drop down, you know, so they look pretty much the same, and made it a separate adapter so that the two are distinct from each other. And then I also discovered that this still said edit text here. And this was one of those where Android went, yeah, whatever. You said convert it to an edit text, and somehow it took that autocomplete text view, successfully completed it, converted it to a autocomplete text view, and made a mess, didn't add anything, so I needed to tweak that real quick as well. And now it does work. Just quick proof. So if I add Robin in here, first of all, as I was typing a Z, it doesn't filter this down here. That was really freaky. I didn't see it. I'm sure if you look in the recording, you'll see it. But I just didn't recognize it as I was typing, that it was actually filtering this list along with that one. So now it seems to be working. I will put this one up on OneDrive. Let me pause the recording and do that real quick. So on OneDrive, this Unit 7, that's what was there before, but this is the new and improved, still adds, includes a spinner, includes an autocomplete text view. Everything is embedded inside there. And now what I'm going to do is start working on this custom list assignment. That one I will leave the starter, so for those of you who want to follow along at home can grab the starter, but the finished version will be up here when I'm done. Android allows you to customize this list view, what appears for each list item. You can completely customize it. And you might even remember that when we were looking at this sample on the screen, the rendering for the emulator, it actually shows you item 1 and sub-item 1 underneath it. Many list views have these little sub-items underneath it, but those default layouts that we grab don't include that extra information underneath. If they do, I couldn't track them down. So what I'm going to show you how to do today is replace these with a custom list item. And once again, let's just kind of go through the thought process first and then take a look. So in order to create a custom list view, the first thing we have to do is create a brand new layout file. I typically call it row for one row. You could call it item. You could call it custom item. You call it whatever you want. In the layout file that includes all the stuff that we want. Now I don't think, nope, I removed that. So I want to create a row XML that includes a header, medium text, subtext underneath it, and then an icon over on the right. So I'm going to right click over here and I'm going to create a new layout resource file. And instead of a linear layout, I'm going to do a relative layout. And I'm going to call it row. This is also what we're going to have to do when we start doing multi-activity applications. You have to create other activities with their own layouts. That's how you have multiple. You tuck them underneath here. But this one is just for a row. Click on OK. And notice you get the same kind of layout stuff. So still a relative layout. I can still drag and drop, or if you hate the drag and drop, you can still go into the text view and tweak it. We might have to do that. The first thing I want is some medium text, so I'm going to park that up here. and give it a name. Everything gets a name. Let's call this TV. No, not gonna let me. Come on. Not good. Let's close it, open it back up again. Well, what the heck? See if I can change its ID over here. It's blue for some reason, like it's locked. Anybody else is doing that, or am I just a lucky guy it's happening to? Just me. Oh, that's good to know. Change to what? Okay, that could be something to change. So you changed the theme on the custom list view? Yeah, I haven't done that, so I don't think that's going to make a whole lot of difference. I'm going to blow it away and just add it back, see if that helps. There we go. So this first one, let's see, which one did I end up doing here? I think these are my pets. Okay, and underneath my Java here, I should see my pet class. Yes, this is going to be a list of all the pets I have. This is in honor of Brittany, who's not even here. Has lots and lots of pets, wants to keep track of them. I'm going to keep track of the pet, its age, that's what's in the class, and I'm going to keep an icon for the kind of animal that it is. So here's the medium text. I gave it a name. I'm going to call it header. And just to make it stand out and to show you even more things that you can do, I'm going to change its text style to bold. And while we're at it, what the heck, let's change the text color to red. And I'll do a all red and nothing else. That'll be bright red. You can do whatever you want to these things. What you don't want to do is make them too big, because they are going to be in those boxes in a list view, and if you make them too big, then you can only see one or two on the screen at a time. Underneath there, I want to add just some plain text. And let's add the text subtext. This text isn't going to last very long, it's just kind of a placeholder. And I'll name this one, was I putting age down here? I think so. These are text views. You cannot, as far as I know, put an edit text inside. All we can do is look at data here. So you can't put an edit text inside of a list object. At least it doesn't make any sense to me. I've never tried it. So these are all just view tools that we're using here. And then finally, I want to add an image. So I'm going to add an image view up here in the upper right. Makes it kind of hard to grab its name and grab its source. And I have a drawable, can't see it. I have to do that outside so I can see it better. Come down here and change its source first at drawable /doc, just as a placeholder. So I have these little icons to represent the kind of pet that they are. So for the source, src, I put that in there, and now that I can see it a little better, I'll change its ID, and this thing is still in the way. And I'll change it to IV icon. Now remember when we created, what are you scowling at over there, Matt?
I'm squinting. All right.
Okay. I can zoom in here a little bit. Remember when we created our array adapters, that array adapter was used over and over and over again for every list item on the list. For every student's name, it was created over and over and over again. This is kind of like a template for a list view. It will be used over and over and over again for every element in our array. So this is my layout. It doesn't show up on the screen by itself. It gets linked into the list view. The list view gets told, hey, when you're laying out your rows, here's the way he wants it to look. And I don't have to have an icon on the right. It can be on the left. I don't have to have the subtext underneath. It can be to the right. You can do whatever you want here. And it'll be used as the template for our list view. I've only got 3 items here. You want 10? You can do 10. If there's room. And be careful with the pictures. My icons are 32 by 32, so they fit nicely on the line. Okay, shouldn't need that anymore. Again, this one doesn't change any. Why do I have all this space up here just to make this scroll a little bit? I could anchor it, and that'll be fine, but I don't have too many pets, and I want to see it scroll, so I'm going to pull it down so that it doesn't quite anchor to the top of the screen. Okay, what else we got to do here? Probably want to create a class. Now, you don't have to create a class to manage your data. We didn't do that with the months. We didn't do that with the students. But if you're storing more about a student than just their first name, which is all we were doing, or month, all we had, if you want to store more than one piece of information, probably you'll want a class. So I created a pet class that has the name, the age, its favorite toy, and the icon. So for every one of my pets, I store its icon. Then I created a constructor where I have to give it all 4 pieces of information. And I also created a constructor where I only gave it 3 pieces of information, because notice in my list view, I didn't add the favorite toy. The point is, your class object can be as big and as complicated as you want it to be, and you just show the highlights in the list view. You don't have to show everything. So I left favorite toy out. This is also to show you and remind you of some of the shortcuts that you can take. Remember, I have 3 constructors. You can have as many as you want / need to make your life convenient. Here's a constructor with nothing. Notice what it does is it instantiates using this, sending it the empty string for the name, 0 for the age, an empty string for the toy, and 0 for the icon. Here, I send the name in as the name, the integer age as an age, the icon in, and I put the empty string in there for the favorite toy. So if you want to add a pet to your list, but you don't have a favorite toy, maybe it's your parrot or your snake or whatever. This is just, again, demonstrating different ways to create constructors. And what you normally do in these circumstances when you have multiple constructors, you define the one that's got everything in the list and basically call it from all of these others and fill in default values where you don't have anything else. Other than that, there's nothing real exciting here. All the setters and getters, remember, you can right-click and generate those. And it automatically built these for me. It's been a long time since you did that, maybe, so that's a good thing to remember, because you're going to have to create a class for the Christmas list / birthday list, whatever you're doing. You generate all those setters and getters. For this unit, Unit 7, I'm not looking for any validation. You're just displaying it on the screen anyways. When you shift to Unit 8, it'll start adding the validation back into the getters, or setters, excuse me. Questions about the class? Again, nothing real special there. Nothing you haven't done before. All right, so that's the pet class that we're going to be using. What else do I have to worry about? The next thing I recommend you do, and this is a little different than I found online, but I think it's a little cleaner. A lot of the online tools, when you look up how do I create a custom list adapter, will actually embed this class that we're going to create inside the main activity. Wait a minute, you can put a class inside of a class? Yep. Actually, we're still going to do it. Just not going to do it inside the main activity. So I'm going to create another class, I've already done it, called a custom list adapter. You can call that class whatever you want, it's your class. This class must extend the base adapter class. So it has additional information in it. Then what I did is inside of this class, I defined another class. It's a local class. It's a class inside a class. And this is that cool thing I was talking about in the last unit, in the last recording. Notice all they did here, and I stole this, right? View holders, whatever name you want to call it. But all they did is they took every single view that's in my row and they stuffed it in here. So this is something you could do in your other programs if you're still working on 6 or something. You could remember, I don't have the other one up here anymore, where at the very beginning of my program at the class level, I defined all of these pointers to the objects on the screen. You could tuck them inside of a class if you wanted to. Because these are not private, you can refer to them directly. There are no setters and getters, so I can change them directly, and you'll see me do that a little later. This is just something I stole off the web. Somebody used this as an example, and once I looked at it long enough, I figured out what the heck they were doing. So instead of having all 3 of these things at the class level, all 3 of these things are tucked inside their own little embedded class, if you will. The custom adapter, remember this is creating an adapter. We've already seen adapters. They link arrays to list views, right? This custom adapter needs, first of all, its context. The context is usually the activity that it's going to display in. You have to send that in, otherwise how does this class talk to the GUI? This is a class that's actually talking to the GUI. Ugh. Let me choice it. As another member, protected, meaning we better not change it. Not sure if I want to leave that there. Maybe it shouldn't be changed in here, probably shouldn't be. This is the list. You can call this whatever you want, but its type has to match. I'm having an array list of pets here, not just an array list of strings, it's an array list of pets. And finally, we need an inflator. This is just a local variable. An inflator takes all that XML that we gave it with all the list, with the relative layouts and text views and images, and inflates them. In other words, turns them into something visual. So these are all local. This is simply a constructor. That's the name of the class, and you should be able to steal all this and change the name from pets to birthdays or whatever you're doing. But you should be able to steal a lot of this stuff and tweak it a little bit. First thing I did is created a constructor. If I want to create a new custom list adapter, and we will, I must send it 2 pieces of information, excuse me. Which activity is this linked to? This. And what array list do I want to use? This gets linked to that. This instantiates an inflator into that other view. Don't ask me what it does, I just know that's what it does. Then, when you do this extends base adapter, you will get the red light bulb, and the red light bulb say you must invoke these methods, including get count. Get count is real simple. It simply returns the size of this array. Get a single item, that's my array, dot get at whatever position we want from here. These, I think, are necessary to build these things somehow. I don't know how it works. Remember that all of this has got this array adapter class, the base adapter. It's got all this magic in it. If there's only 6 rows on the screen, it's only got 6 or 7 rows in memory, and as you scroll, it adds more. And as you add them, it leaves them in here. So that as you scroll again later, it doesn't have to keep adding them. It only adds items to your list as it needs to display them, which is really pretty cool. But I think all of these methods are required to make that happen. There is another one that you're required to have called get item ID. We never use it, so that one you can return 0. The main thing here is the get view method. What's bizarre in get view is it also seems to set somehow, magically. It says, if there isn't one, make one. That's his first question. If this view, that's the current row, remember? If the current row doesn't exist, if it's equal to null, then make one. Whoa. Kind of cool. Again, as I'm scrolling through my list, if the item doesn't exist, make it. Hurry up because he's scrolling, but make it. This view holder is simply one of these guys with all his pointers tucked inside. View holder is the name. I just stole it from the web. I could call it anything I want. My row view or whatever. So down here, I'm instantiating a view holder called holder. And then I need to inflate, and here I put some comments in here to help me walk along. So this class, just as a review, has pointers to all the things that are in the row. It has the context, which activity am I talking to? It has a copy of the array. That's why it's protected. It's a copy of the array. And it has some basic little utility routines. You just change the name of the array and you should be fine. Change the name of the type here. Now here's where the meat happens, and somehow this guy gets executed over, and I don't know how, over and over and over again for every single row that's in the list box, which is based on how many things are in the array. So it's all tied together. So now back to the notes. Here's the constructor. We talked about that. We defined the members. I gave them to you. Define these. I gave them to you. Steal them. And then here's the big one. This we already have. Now my notes on my comments on the other one said inflate. So here what we're going to do is using this object, its inflator, we're going to inflate this row. In other words, take the XML and turn it into something visual. Magic. Linking it to our list. And I don't remember what the false is all about. Okay. Who's this convert view? Convert view is my row. Does it exist? Okay. So here we're going to say that the convert view, is it equals?
Equals this.
Equals the inflator. Yep. Equals this. Remember, that's this class, not this activity, because we're not in the activity, we're in the class. This class has a member called inflator that we instantiated up here when in my constructor we set it to this. It linked it back to the activity. And then back to my notes. And then we did a dot inflate using that row. Using our row, so that's an r.layout. This beat me up for a while trying to figure that one out. r.layout, that's this guy, I'm sorry, dot row, that's this guy. And then that's linked to the parent, which is the list, I think that's the whole list view somehow, because that's this guy, the view group. And then a false for attached to root, whatever that means. So that's a translation of what's in my notes. So this said, if there is no row, give me a bunch of pointers, use those in a minute, and then make one out of this template. Now, this holder is brand new. None of the pointers are pointing to anything. Got a bunch of text views and images, but they're not pointing at anything. So we need to connect them. So then I can say holder.tv name equals, now here's where it gets just slightly tricky. We have to ask the converted view. That's the row, remember, that we just created to find by ID. So we can't, before we could just, it would have been a this in front of it, but we never did it. We just said find by ID. Well, in this case, we don't have an activity. So we're telling that new row that we just created, hey, you Mr. New Row, link me up to your TV name. r.id.tv name. TV. It's a dumb name. We'll go with it. And we probably have to do our conversion here just like we always do. Check my notes. I think I have a sample. Text view, convert, find by ID to whatever you're linking it to. And now we just do that for everything that's on, I almost want to say the screen, but it's not the screen, it's just that row, for every object that you have in that row. So holder.tv age. And then there's also the image view. If we took the holder and the convert view out of this, it ought to look really familiar. If you've been doing this since Unit 3, when you were saying, I need a pointer to my text view, I need a pointer to my image view, I need a pointer to that edit text. It's the same thing, except we embedded it inside a class, just for grins. You don't like this class, you can change it. Just take this class out and you'll have text view, image view, all sitting at, oh, I don't know if we can do that. Let me hang on a second. They may have to be inside this class because I think the whole mess of them is going to be used here in just a second. We'll see. So you might need this. But this is simply linking pointers to their actual text views. So now those are linked. What's all that stuff? Oh, that's later. Okay. Now we need to set the tag. Right, done? Link each O to its widget. I think so. Now there's a command here to set the tag. It's just convert view.setTag. I haven't quite figured out what this one's for. And notice here, this is interesting. Set tag is set to the holder. That's the whole bunch of pointers. If I understand a tag right, it is a field assigned to a visual object, like a text box, like text view, that can be used by you, the programmer, for anything. At least in Visual Studio, that's what tags are. They are properties that are not used by the operating system. They're not used by the object. They're for your use. You can get them and set them, and that's about it. So what's happening here? I think this is taking my holder, running it through a toString. This doesn't have a toString. All right, then it creates this ugly looking toString, because everything can toString. It's just ugly. And it assigns it to that view, to that row. That row now has a tag associated with it, which is weird. Because if the row does exist, then it says, go get the tag from that guy. What do we do with the tag? Nothing that I can see. So I'm suspicious that maybe we could get rid of these two lines. I'm not sure what they're doing with the tags right now. I don't see it.
Looks like it's saving the pointers. So you
For some reason, or at least some visual, some kind of description. Oh, holder equals. Oh, I see. Whoa. Okay. Thank you. So again, imagine a list view with a bunch of rows. Each one of those rows is its own class with pointers to its text view and its icon. So each row has its own pointers. Whoa. So if the row already exists, it basically relinks the pointers to its objects in there. Wow. Cool. Steal it. If you don't understand it, don't worry about it. If I understood everything I coded, if I had to understand everything I coded, I wouldn't be teaching. I'd still be figuring out something in college right now. Don't have to understand it necessarily, but if you can steal it, somewhere down the road, you might be able to understand it. So the real kicker here, a lot of this was common code. If you call your layout row, which knowing you guys, you probably will, because that's what I called mine, you can steal that. This you'll have to tweak because the names of your objects and the names of your pointers up here will probably be different. Why would you call it TV name, age, and icon? Some of them you can steal, but birthday's missing, first name, last name, those are supposed to be separated. Christmas gift, maximum price, you're going to have some tweaking to do here. But for every one of those, you need to define the pointers. And then all we do is find out where are we in the list. Because if the object didn't exist, we created it. Where are we in the list? Get that out of the array. This is my pet list. It's the array of pets. Go get it. And then simply stuff the text into the text view of this row, stuff the age into the age view of this row, and get the icon and put that in here and display it. Here's a little tweak that some of you have seen. You might know that if I'm getting, this is a number, it's an integer. I cannot set text to an integer because it's not text. So often we just do a .toString. This is another way, looks like a lot of people do it because I stole this off the web. Instead of using quote, quote, plus instead of .toString. Is it as effective? I don't know, that's interesting. Probably does a toString anyways. But anyway, so this has done that for that row. Then it does, somehow it does this magically over and over and over again. That's what the adapter does. Remember, it sits between the array and the list. And so the adapter helps build the list by looking in the array saying I need 17 or whatever items, start building them one at a time, and for each one of them it runs through this get view, and if it doesn't exist it creates it first, then fills it. So exactly how this works, I can't tell you. And this all says basically the same thing, but if you're smart, you'll steal a lot of my stuff. In the main activity, we first have to declare one of these. Now we have this fancy dancy class. So declare an adapter of this type. Instead of array adapter, we're going to use our custom adapter. Instantiate it with this activity and the name of your array. All the rest of it, the creating of the pointers and all that gets done inside the class. So we don't have to worry about it. And then just set the adapter. Oh, it's pretty simple. So in the main activity, we just need to figure out where to do that. And I could probably do it here. Yep. Because in my other one I had create the array adapters method because we were learning about it. But we could do that here. So I'm going to ask for one of those custom list adapters. And I'm going to call it an adapter. And make it equal to a new custom list adapter. Using this and my array of pets, which I think is called pet list. Yep. That does all of the dirty work. And really there wasn't much dirty work, right? If you think of our other examples, there wasn't much dirty work. All that we did is we created an adapter and said, use this built-in r.layout that came with Android Studio. Now we're saying, no. Use my custom adapter and use this array and all the rest of the stuff. The layout is actually built into that custom class. Then my ListView.pets.set the adapter to that custom adapter, which is very similar to what we did before. End of notes. Time to test. Okay, real quick, one thing we didn't look at is I also have a method called create sample data that simply goes through and creates a bunch of pets. And notice I'm using the version of the constructor that doesn't include any favorite toys because I didn't want to dream them up. It just means every one of these pets doesn't get any toys. They're sad pets. If you want to later, you could tweak any one of these because I think the favorite toy comes after the age. And so this is a kitty and she likes to play with yarn. But I'm not using any of that in my example. In your example, you get a different problem. And when the user clicks on an item in the list, you're supposed to display everything you know about that birthday, about that Christmas item. I'm not going to show you how to do that here because it's just taking all the fun out of the assignment. So I have a bunch of pets. Let it rip. Let's see what happens. Fingers crossed. Now again, most of you are going to steal stuff, but the part that I always forget is this. When you create a class, that does not get added, right? When you create a pets class, this does not get added. When I created my custom list adapter class using the right-click, add a new Java class, it didn't add that on there. If you forget, nothing works. Doesn't complain very much either, but nothing works. Then when you finally do add it, then you don't have these other methods that goes, hey, 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 I need one of these, I need one of these, one of these, one of these. If you're going to extend the base adapter class says you got to have these 4 methods at the bare minimum. Instead of stealing a lot of mine, my advice to you is build this from scratch. Build your own list view. Build your own rows from scratch instead of copying mine. Build your own classes, one for the birthday class, one for the custom array list. Build them from scratch and kind of see how these pieces fit together. And they don't. We crashed. Okay, what's going on here? Main activity, custom list adapter. Did you give me a line number? Okay, I think what's wrong here is I've got them flipped. I swear I ran that. Because right now, when I try to link the widgets is also doing the adapter. And there's nothing in the array yet. So I'm going to see what happens if I flip these two. I'm going to create my sample data first, and then link the widgets and see if that solves my problem. Because the message here basically said the get count failed because there was nothing inside my array list yet. I built this whole thing last night, but then I had to strip out all the stuff I wasn't using. That's better. And this is scrollable. I just don't have many critters. But we got dinosaurs and dogs and cats and whatever. It's just my visual clue to a type of pet that is. Actually, it's just an excuse for me to put a picture in a list view. I've seen all kinds of cool things here. Feel free to knock yourself out and try to impress me and see if you can get bonus points out of it. I've seen people change the background color of each individual row based on the type of data that's in it. Remember your loans? No way, maybe. You could have a whole list of loans here and change the background color of the object based on what's inside it. Could you change the background image of each row? Yeah, I think so. It's a view. Anything you can do with a view, for the most part, you could do here. And now everything else is pretty much the same. Hey, did I put a toast message in here? Nothing selected. Yeah, here's my toast message saying item selected. But when I select an item, here's an interesting question. What do I want to know? The view is the row, right? But at this point, if I want to display the critter's name, I'm going to go get it. Based on this position, I'm going to get it from the original array list. Why would I want to go digging inside the view and suck data out of there when it's right here in my array list? So I'm going to create a pet, selected pet, and that's going to be equal to pet list dot get from the position. So I took the position in the array list, I'm sorry, in the list box, I'm in position number 3. Okay, that's the 4th pet. It's got to be the same one that's in the array list. And so I went to position 4 in the array list and said, go get me that. And this name is way too long. So I'm going to call it a pet. And then here I can do all kinds of stuff. Like a pet dot give me its name. And concatenate is concatenate a pet's age. When we were doing the other list views, I was showing you how to get stuff out of this view. But now this view is an entire row. It's got 3 pieces parts. Once you're into the 3 pieces parts, now you got to go to the text view and get what's in there. No. Let's go back to the original array list. Use the position, and you could probably use the ID if you wanted to. Use the position to grab the corresponding item in the array, and then use that for all your processing. On item selected. I have an on item selected listener. As I click on them, they're not showing up, and I don't know why I didn't go that far last night. Not getting any toast. Why not?
Did you compile it?
I believe so. All I did is change the toast message. Before it just said item selected. I should have gotten at least that much.
Mhm.
So, do a little debugging since it's early in the evening here. Let's figure out what's going on. And here's my item click listener. So let's put a breakpoint in here and see if it's getting there. I think it is. Might not be. Nope, it's not. Did I remember in my widgets to set the listener? lvpets.set on item selected listener to this. It's not getting here. All right, pause the recording. All right, it doesn't work in my sample either, so what I'm going to do in addition, to see what happens, is I'm also going to set for pets an on-click listener. We saw that work. Is there an item click? Item click listener to this. I swore I wrote one with it of those. And then let's steal my toast message. think at the beginning of the recording number 3, I talked about what's the difference between items selected and click. I'm not quite sure I know the difference, but I do know that right now the item selected listener doesn't seem to be selecting. Though, Karen, didn't you mention something about in the list that there is a way to highlight them? Wasn't there a way to mark them as selected? Isn't it a property of the lists? Pardon me? I think when we were talking about lists earlier, you found a way, or you found a property that said show it when it's selected. So it may be that it's not selected because I don't have that property turned on. That's possible. Is this the latest version here? Yes. Okay, so the click is when they're not selected. Now I wish I could remember what Karen was talking about. Karen doesn't remember either.
When we were setting it up and there was a drop down.
It was a drop down? Oh, it was one of those. Okay, so you were saying in the list view then, single choice, multiple choice, none. No, I don't think it's that. I don't think that's, well, maybe. Choice, single choice, clickable, divider, footer, folks, long click, layout label. Okay, we're going to dig that out and I'm going to put it in here. I'm going to kill the recording, and those of you who got other things to do can move on to those other things to do. There was something that we set, and I don't know if it was inside the XML. Karen said something about it was a property of this, but I don't see it. Pardon me? I don't think it was in the adapter. I think it's a property of the list view to say when I click on it. Oh, maybe it was one of the, yeah, you might be right. And now we don't have that.
So it's something that the implement.
Because it was one of the choices. It was one of the Android.layout.built-in choices that allowed us to select it and show the selected one, right?
So it's got to be a method that we can implement in your custom list adapter.
Okay. But for now, the answer is use the on click instead of on item selected, because we're not selecting anything. There must be some way to say, that's something I have to do a little research on, to say make on click, make this item selected. I don't know how that works exactly. So for your assignment that I'm giving you, you don't have to, don't use on selected, on item selected, use on item click to do your processing, because that did work.